Welcome back to Reinvention Real Talk, the podcast where we explore the power, pain, and purpose of starting over. I am your host, Karen Larrea, and today's episode is a heart opening, truth telling conversation that is very much long overdue. My guest is Dr. Clint Steele, a chiropractor, educator, and founder of the TRUCHIRO movement. But most importantly, he's someone who understands the real healing doesn't start in the body. It starts in the brain, in the nervous system, in the willingness to feel again after shutting down for survival. Today, we are going beyond the adjustment table. We're diving into emotional burnout, identity loss, and what it means, especially for men, to reclaim life from the inside out. This one is personal, powerful, and deeply needed. Thank you so much, Dr. Steele, for joining me. I am so excited to have you here on Reinvention Real Talk.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, let's get right into it. I really want to talk. I think this conversation is so long overdue. Like I said in the intro, for men, a lot of people don't want to talk about, what's happening in men's lives, and kind of men are conditioned in life to, suppress and hide things. So let's talk about the real cost of burnout. So often when we talk about burnout, we associate it with hustle culture or long hours. But your work paints a deeper picture. The burnout is a nervous system breakdown. Can you please explain what actually is happening in the brain and body during the burnout and why so many people feel stuck there?
Yeah, what's happening is when you burn out, this is stress, right? And according to National Institute of Health, whatever credibility you think they have, whatever, over 90% of disease is due to stress. I talk a lot about how when you are overstressed, your brain actually starts to shrink. The volume of the cortex of the brain, which is the part of the brain that's the executive director, if you will, of your life, not only your bodily functions, but also your life, starts to degenerate. I call it brain rot. It's kind of like an apple sitting on a counter for days and days, right? It actually, you can see it start to shrivel up and shrink. And that's what happens to your brain. We see this in functional MRIs. And so I think people need to understand, especially men, because these are the guys that are dying of, and women do too, to a certain extent, but it's the majority of the guys that are dying of, heart attacks at age 55, 60, 65 years old, because their brain is not able to coordinate the functions of their cardiovascular system properly now anymore. So it's more than just, the heart attack. It's also leading to depression. It's leading to anxiety. It's leading to, we could go on, but bottom line is it causes brain degeneration, right? And my question to you is, do you want a healthy brain? And if so, how long do you want that healthy brain?
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't understand that with all that stress. Like you say, brain rot is the perfect way to describe it. And they think stress is good to live in, or stress is a must in life.
I think what happens is this is men, and this was me for a long time, was I can outgrind anybody. Like all I need to do to be successful is I just got to outwork everyone else. And I'm like, I can outgrind everyone, right? But I got to a point where it's like, okay, this is not good for me. This is not good for my relationships. This is not good for my health, period. And so I'm like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something else. And I don't want to do this anymore.
Yes, absolutely. I think it just comes down to that, where the person themselves decides, no more, I'm done. This is not what I want in my life. So, and you are definitely helping many people discover that and get to that point, which is wonderful. So thank you for that. And so I want to talk about you, because so people get to know you. The ones that don't know you, my listeners that are just getting to know you, you have openly shared about leaving you being a chiropractor and hitting what many would consider rock bottom. What were those moments like for you internally, emotionally, spiritually, even physically?
It was. It just got to a point, again, like I said earlier, where I had enough. I didn't want to live like that anymore. And I said, I'm done. And I walked away from it. There was multiple things going on, not only from a professional standpoint, but also I was going through a divorce at the same time, so that played a part in it. And I just said, you know what, I need to reset. I just need to reset my life. And I guess some people would call it, a midlife crisis, if you will. And if that's what it was,
Yeah.
then fine. But it was just to the point where it's like, this is not what I want for the rest of my life. And so I had to make a decision. And I know
Yeah.
a lot of people are in that spot, especially men. They've got to take
Mm-hmm.
care of their families. They got to provide for their families. They've got to, they've got to do the things, right? And so it was a very difficult decision, but it was something that I needed to do. And some people, unfortunately called it selfish at the time. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, if I hadn't been selfish and I hadn't put my health first, not only my emotional health
Mm-hmm.
but my physical health, I honestly don't know if I'd be here right now. I don't think I'd be on this planet right now anymore. And so it was
Wow.
just something that I had to do, right?
Yeah. So it like reshaped your sense of identity by you hitting that rock bottom.
Yeah. One of the things I do with a lot of patients is I take a negative experience in their life and I say, find something positive in that experience. And yeah, I can look at that and
Yeah.
say, this was the turning point. And thanks to that, I'm able to now
Mm-hmm.
reach out. Like I'm reaching out and helping millions of people now because of that.
Yeah.
And so it actually turned into something good.
And when was telling a few people about this interview that was coming up with giving your background, and it was funny because I got two different reactions from men. I got one reaction of, well, what are you going to talk about that? We're men, we suck it up. Versus another friend of mine said, wow, I think that's great because a lot of people don't want to talk about the issues that men go through So of what we're going through. And, he's like, thank you for even bringing that up. And so, I want to get deep with those two reactions. I'm like, I got to get deeper into something with you because I think many men carry that silently, the emotional disconnection. And you often talk about trauma, not just as events, but as patterns in the nervous system. Like, can you walk us through how unprocessed trauma creates this emotional shutdown, especially in men? Like my first friend that said, we just supposed to just suck it up, we're men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was my mentality for a long time too. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you. If I wanted to, I could go back and I could suck it up. I could suck it up with the best of them. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I can outgrind anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I still sometimes want to do that. I think that's kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
neurosynaptic pathway that's kind of deep ingrained, that I want to do that. I want to prove to myself that I'm manly. But one of the
Yeah.
things I share with my bonus daughters, they're dating men right now,
Okay.
and they're looking for that man that's tough and rugged and like doesn't share feelings and doesn't share emotions. And I'm like, you know what? And I'm going to tell the guy that said that to you, you were supposed to suck it up. I'm going to tell you something, and that is
Yeah.
this: it takes more of a man. It takes more courage to open up and share your feelings and be emotional than it does to suck it
Mm-hmm.
up. 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, not even close.
Amen.
Guys, it takes more
Mm-hmm.
courage. It takes more to. I was going to say testicular fortitude, if you will, whatever term you want to use, right? But um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, to be able to open up and be emotional and just be authentic and be
Yeah.
yourself, it takes
Mm-hmm.
courage, and that is, in my opinion, that's what real men do. They can do that. And what I've found when I do that is not only does it improve my health, it improves my emotional well-being, it improves my nervous system regulation. But one of the great things is like my relationships are amazing now, especially with my wife. Like there's no way I would have this deep of a relationship with my wife if I wasn't open like this and I wasn't vulnerable, right? It takes a lot of courage to do that, and still to this day, I've been doing it for years now. Still, but my first response is nope, I'm not going there. But then I know it's for my best, and so I open up and I become vulnerable, and it brings us closer, and it helps me from a nervous system standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, the whole 9 yards.
Yes, it's so important. And how you just said the word vulnerable, because so many men think that they don't have to be vulnerable. And I mean, I'm raising a son, he's 17, and I have always told him, you can still be as strong, I always like to say the strong container that's going to hold, your woman, when you eventually get married, but you can also be vulnerable. You still have feelings, you still have a voice, you still are able to say things. And then on a different level, I was recently on a date, and the person, he got a little bit emotional on something that we were talking about, but not in a bad way. It was like he was, recalling something that happened in his life, and he said after like realized he got emotional. He said, "I'm so sorry that I got this emotional." And I shouldn't have. And I just looked at him and I said, actually, do you know what? You look so much more. You look 10 times more, I said attractive, that I just saw that you could actually be vulnerable. You're not this strong, tough man that is trying to hold this hard
Yeah.
shell in front of me. And he was like, and I saw his face, like when I said that to him, I saw his face actually soften up. That I said to him, I'm still seeing you as a strong man, but you just showed me that you can be that vulnerable man as well. So it's 10 times more attractive, and like if you're able to navigate both, I think it's wonderful, and you're helping so many men do that. And I want to linger on this because we don't think we talk about it enough. Why is it so hard for men to feel safe being vulnerable?
Well, I think it's just society, right? I think it's we're brought up to be tough men and be able to hide our emotions and, just be the manly man, right? Manly men don't show their emotions. They don't cry. They don't open up. They're not vulnerable. They don't, um, yeah, I think that's it. I think, honestly, I think that's probably why is just, it's a societal thing, right?
That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, do you think the role of social conditioning, of shame, even our healthcare system, do you think that they are keeping men numb or emotionally blocked, that they are part of this problem? I mean, you said social conditioning, but shame, healthcare system, is that also part of it?
I think shame is for sure. I'm not sure about our healthcare. I'm having a hard time connecting the dots there. Maybe you can expand on that, and I can talk more about that. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Healthcare system, I think maybe like if like a man will go to a doctor and say, "Hey doctor, I'm feeling depressed. I'm not
Oh,
feeling in alignment."
yeah.
And he may be feeling, going down a hole, and the doctor's like, "Oh, well, what are you have stress in work, you have this," and they just chalk it up to like nothing and just brush it off instead of saying, "Let's sit down, let's talk about this. Let's get deeper into the root of the problem. Maybe you need some therapy. Maybe we need to see what other things we can help you with." That is just that sometimes in the healthcare system, doctors just brush it off as, "Hey, you know what? You're a man. You're supposed to just be stressed and you're supposed to have everything inside."
See, I haven't experienced that, and maybe it's because I'm a healthcare practitioner. I don't treat people that way, men that way when they come in. I know when I
Mm-hmm.
was depressed, when I was deeply depressed, my medical doctor at the time didn't treat me that way. So I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't experienced that, so I don't know if I can talk on that point.
So I think it's probably who is treating you and kind of like almost their bedside manner
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well, here we're all about reinvention, and reinvention can sound trendy, but the way you frame it, it is scientific. Like you talk about healing from the brain down, not just the symptoms up. In this show, we talk about reinvention, and reinvention can sound trendy, but the way that you frame it is very scientific. Can you talk about healing from the brain down, not just the symptoms up? So, can you please break down for us exactly what happens neurologically when someone begins to reinvent their life from a place of regulation?
Yeah, yeah. Understand first off, one of the questions I'll ask a patient. I like to ask this question because I don't want to tell, but I'll ask the question: What
Okay.
coordinates every function in your body, right? And the answer is the brain,
Mm.
right? Most people know this. If they don't know this, I'll have them put out a finger and rotate it one way, and then rotate it the other way. What told your finger to do that? Well, my brain. So I'll ask the question again: What coordinates every function in your
Ah,
body? My brain. And so, in order for your brain to coordinate every function in
right.
your body, it has to go through three steps. Number one, it has to perceive the environment. It has to know whether or not the fire alarm is going off or it's time to take a nap, right? Second thing it has to do, it has to process that information. And the third thing it has to do is it has to communicate that to the body. And so what happens is when your brain thinks the fire alarm is going off, it thinks it's a fire, it's going to process that and it's going to change physiologic function. That means muscles are going to tense up. That means heart rate's going to increase. It means respiration rate's going to increase. It also means certain neurotransmitters are going to be released from the brain. In other words, neurotransmitters and hormones to help you escape as compared to help you regenerate, because your brain can't be in survival mode and healing mode at the same time. It can only be in one or the other. In addition, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. Yeah, fight or flight, exactly. And so your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And so what we see is that when you imagine things, when you hold on to these stressors, whether it's guilt or shame or whatever, your brain takes that on as a stress. That moves your brain into survival mode. That means your brain is now going to change physiologic function to move you into survival mode, which is great if you're actually trying to escape a burning building or you're trying to escape an attacker, right? But what happens is majority of people today are in that state 80 to 90% of the time instead of where it should be, which is 10 to 15% of the time. And so as you can see, as I reveal that whole scenario there, when you're stuck in survival mode, it's going to change physiologic function and not in a good way. And from a male standpoint, I'll just throw this out because I think males are concerned about this. And I ask patients, especially men, do you care about your brain health? A lot of them don't care. They like, whatever, I'm going to die when I'm going to die. But if I say to them, well, how about your sexual health? Are you concerned about being able to get an erection, to be able to pleasure your partner? And they'll say, well, yeah, of course. Well, understand that the two are connected. When you have a brain problem, chances are good you're going to have an erection problem. It's not a little blue pill problem. It's a brain problem. And that brain problem comes from you being emotionally dysregulated, being neurologically dysregulated. Okay. And that comes from holding those feelings in. That comes from having to be tough and mature and manly and whatever you're being taught or whatever you're being told. And it's causing problems.
Yeah. And I love that you explain it to them that way because, again, it goes back to that primal, I am a man, and that's why they're going to understand it, which is why so many people follow you there. You have your clients, you really break it down in a way that people can understand. Almost like I'll always say if I want something explained like very clearly, I always say, can you now explain it to me like I'm a third grader? And sometimes you have to explain it in the most primal way, and you do a great job of that, so that is wonderful. Now I want to get into you and about TRUCHIRO. So once you began to heal emotionally and neurologically, your own purpose evolved. So can you share with us what gave birth to the TRUCHIRO model and how you shifted from traditional chiropractic to brain-based practice that integrates these deep layers of purpose and alignment?
Yeah, it comes down to, I asked myself, what coordinates every function in the body? Obviously, it's the brain. And there's some research showing that chiropractic actually changes brain function. And so I started kind of on that path. And then that moved into, me seeing people with dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. And what I realized was as I improved their brain function, we were seeing reversals of all these diseases. And so that led to the social media, that led to technology. Now that we measure, we have docs all over the world that measure brain function during stress and during recovery. And so that's what led to that. And now, now we're seeing all kinds of great changes in people that people thought, dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease couldn't be prevented. It couldn't be reversed. And that's exactly what we're doing now. So we're proving them wrong.
Yeah, it's groundbreaking. Yes, because almost when people hear those diagnoses, they hear it as, that's it, my life is over. And you're proving them wrong.
100%.
Which is wonderful. Yep. All right, so let's bring it down to the ground. So now for the listener who feels emotionally numb, checked out, anxious 24/7, Doctor, what are some of the first steps that they can take to begin regulating their nervous system and feeling again?
I think one of the foundations is they need to learn how to breathe properly. Okay. And I
Mm-hmm.
say this to people and they're like dumbfounded. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm alive, so I must know how to breathe properly. But the majority of people don't know how to breathe properly. And if you breathe if I ask you to take a deep breath and you're taking a deep breath with your chest and shoulders like this,
Mm-hmm.
that is the wrong breathing
Uh-huh.
pattern. You are telling your brain that you're in survival mode. Okay. So what we need to do, and the reason this is important is you take 20,000 on average, 20,000 breaths a day. And so we need to
Right.
learn to breathe with our diaphragm. Diaphragmatic
Mm-hmm.
breathing will
Mm-hmm.
engage the vagus nerve and help you move from survival mode into what I call healing mode.
Okay.
And so breathing is super important. Thoughts are super important, what you're thinking, because our thoughts are with us 24/7, right?
Yes.
If you find yourself getting stressed over things, it's not the thing that you're getting stressed about. Understand, if someone
Right.
says something to you and you get upset, it's not what they said to you. It's not what they
Mm-hmm.
did to you. It's your perception of that based on you, based on yourself. Okay. Because what happens is we have these
Yes.
limiting beliefs about ourselves that we put into
Mm-hmm.
context that make us feel angry or make us feel sad or make us feel whatever. And it's based on a limiting belief. And so we've got to figure out that limiting belief, and we've got a process where we help people learn how to do that. But most of the limiting beliefs revolve around something like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not deserving of that, or something's wrong with me. And so we've got to
Yeah.
rewire that, and that changes nervous system regulation, huge amounts, right? So doing stuff like that, and then
Mm-hmm.
obviously we can go into supplements and exercises. Meditation is really big to help people down regulate their nervous system. But all this stuff,
Huge.
really, what it does is it breaks it down into moving out of survival mode, moving to what I call thrival mode, and that's getting into alignment with source. Basically, that's what it does. It's moving out of ego and moving into alignment with God, with source, with the universe, whatever that power is that you want to call it. And that's what this boils down to at a foundational level.
That is so true. And I think that's both for men and women. I know we're kind of centering this episode on men, but that is, I think it's for anyone. And it is so, everything that you said is just, it's so important to do those things in your life and regulate yourself. So let's talk about a man. If he is listening to this episode and he is suffering silently, going through the motions, maybe he's not even sure about what's wrong with him, what would you say to him? What does it mean to heal and come back to yourself in this chapter of life? How would you describe in terms of a man to man?
Well, first thing I would ask, I think, with most men is, what do you want? What do you want out of your
Mm,
life, right?
yeah.
And no judgment here. I want you to be honest with me. What is it ultimately you want? Because I think a
Hmm.
lot of men, I don't want to say pretend, but they live this life of what they think they should be, or what they think other people want them to be.
Hmm.
And I think when you break it down, guys don't get in touch with that enough. And I think when they do, then they can really start to become aware and make the decisions that need to be made, right? It's not,
Yes.
I don't want to be this person that runs this company anymore. I just want to have a great relationship with my wife and my kids and be able to enjoy my time with them and live whatever it is. I don't know what it is. It's different for every person, but I think the key is to get in touch with
Hmm.
that, number one. And then once we know what that is,
Okay.
then we can determine what needs to be done for that to get to that point. Because without
Hmm.
that, there is
Okay.
oftentimes a lack of, I don't want to say discipline, but there's going to be that lack of motivation, if you will, or inspiration, right? So we've got to have that inspiration first to start to make the
Okay.
changes.
So maybe they could actually sit down, like you said, okay, what is going on? What do you want from your life? And even if they have to sit down and write it and just, kind of like I always say, just write without thinking, and maybe that will come out of it, then they can start taking the steps towards improving their life on a better level.
Yeah, I think that's big. I think that's what happened with me was, I'm like, you know what, I'm grinding. I'm going in every day to this office. I'm married to a
Yeah.
woman that is a great woman, but I'm not in love with her. Um,
Hmm.
and I just said, you know what, this is not what I want for the rest of my life. And so
Yeah.
that initiated the steps for me to move to the
Hmm.
next level and do what I needed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's sad, like you said, like she had a wonderful woman, it had to end, but you had to do what's good for you. You only have one life, and I think a lot of people in general don't understand you've got one shot here.
Yep.
And it's not selfishness. It's about once you find yourself, once you know and you are in alignment and feel good in what you're doing in your life and how you're living, I don't think it's selfish. I think you make yourself tenfold for everyone else at that point. Because if you're
Yeah.
living in a happiness or living on the path that is for you, everyone else is going to benefit versus you're miserable and living for everyone else.
That is so true. And I think that's a big key. I was grinding through, right? I was just doing the things. And for a number of years after that, I felt guilt. I felt a little bit of shame of going through a
Yeah.
divorce because I grew up as a Christian. I don't believe in divorce. It caused some problems with my
Yeah.
relationship with my sons. But now, and now it's, what is it, 14 years later, 15 years later, I'm a better dad now. I'm a better husband. My current wife, like I found an amazing woman that I'm totally madly in love with. We've been together, for a while, and I'm better in my career now. Like there's no way I would be doing the stuff that I'm doing if I had stayed in that relationship. And to your point, now it's tenfold. I'm living the life
Yeah.
tenfold. I'm reaching more people now. I'm helping more people, and I just love life way, way, way more than I did back then.
And finding yourself, you're causing a movement. You're making a movement for so many people, and we couldn't be any more grateful for that. So you definitely are causing better life for so many people and helping them. And so let us know. You do work privately with patients, and like let's say if they can't get to you, where can our listeners find you? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, drclintsteele.com.
And on social media, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me anywhere except YouTube. YouTube kicked me off for
Okay.
supposedly sharing medical misinformation, which everything that I share is always backed by research. So it's interesting that happened. But I'm on TikTok, I'm on
Yeah.
Instagram, I'm on Rumble now, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on all of the social media outlets, X, etc. And you can find me different names on different locations.
We will definitely link all of that in the show notes, so it'll make it easier for people to find you and find the help that they need. And now, Dr. Steele, one last question I ask every single one of my guests is, in one word, what does reinvention mean to you?
Growth.
Growth. I love that. Growth. That's a beautiful one word reinvention. Thank you for that. Dr. Steele, thank you. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your wisdom, your heart. You remind us that true reinvention isn't about hustling harder. It's about coming home to the nervous system, to our purpose, and to the parts of us that we have silenced for so long. To everyone listening, especially the men carrying the silent pain, I hope this episode gives you permission to feel again, to rest, to begin again, because you do deserve to live regulated. Please, those of you that are needing, maybe even just wondering, what is going on with my life? I'm not happy. And you want to learn more about Dr. Clint Steele's work and his work in TRUCHIRO. Everything is going to be in the show notes. If this episode moved you, share it with someone that needs to hear this. Thank you again, Dr. Steele, for joining us. It definitely was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Keep up the great work, Karen. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much.